Disclaimer, I act coy about Pikmin 3 Deluxe for the sake of building anticipation and comedy, but also because the bulk of this script was written months before it was announced, so keep comments about how I'm oblivious to it at a minimum, please. Thanks, I love you.
Hey there, it's Alm again, and this is part 2 of my Which Pikmin Game is the Best comparison video. If you haven't seen part 1 yet,
What's wrong with you?
click the little icon on the top of the screen to get caught up to speed with the first 2 games. You can also find a link in the description just in case YouTube changes the layout again and gets rid of the option to have links appear on the video window. I'm still mad about annotations. Fuck you, Susan! Pikmin 3! Pikmin 3 came out on the Wii U on August 4th, 2013 in North America, a full 9 years after Pikmin 2's release. Multiple delays and misinformation kept this much anticipated third installment from us, but finally, it came. And we all screamed real loud. But was the 9-year wait worth it? Is this the Pikmin game to end all Pikmin games? Let's take a look. So, what happened to Olimar and Louie after the events of the last game? Well, hopefully after a well-deserved beating, Louie was put in a hospital and Olimar finally got to spend some time with his family. All is well, and everyone is happy. On Hakatate, in a neighboring galaxy, a small planet named Kopai is facing an unprecedented crisis. The whole damn planet ran out of food. After sending out multiple probes to other planets in hopes of finding resources, they all come up short. Except one. They dubbed this newly discovered planet PNF 404. Yeah, real clever, guys. And immediately send out 3 capable adventurers to scope it out and bring back more food. Alf, a young engineer whose grandfather created the ship they're traveling in. Brittany, a peppy botanist with a sinister, greedy side, and Captain Charlie, a seasoned space travel veteran who can't sleep at night without his rubber duck. However, when they enter the atmosphere of PNF 404, the Duck Hunt dog shoots them out of orbit,
Something.
leading to the ship exploding and sending the 3 explorers plummeting to the surface. Pikmin 3. So Charlie wakes up in an abandoned snowfield and his ship and crew are nowhere to be seen. Surprise! PNF 404 is the planet of the Pikmin. After running into some yellow Pikmin, fucking up some mushrooms, and generally just fucking about, Charlie gets attacked by something. And then we switch perspectives to Alf, who falls into a pool of water, and narrowly catches a glimpse of the Drake sputtering out of control and crashing nearby. He jumps to action and finds a group of red Pikmin in distress, and with their help, manages to get to the Drake. Unfortunately, he is unable to leave the planet to get help because the cosmic drive key, the component the ship needs to travel at light speed, is missing. After exploring some more, he comes into contact with Brittany.
Yo! Yo, holy shit!
She
Dead!
and helps her escape a huge cage she's trapped in. While faffing around some more, Alf discovers this huge strawberry and concludes it's food they can harvest for seeds and rations to stay well fed for the duration of their stay. Yada yada gameplay, yada yada. Alf and Brittany get separated again. They beat this huge monster that swallowed Charlie. After rescuing him, Alf explains the cosmic drive key situation to Charlie, who deftly retorts, "Yeah, dumbass, I know. I found this MP3 file inside this monster's colon and it says some guy named Olimar found our key." The 3 continue their search for food and for this mysterious Olimar fellow, when they get an emergency transmission from an unknown caller. Oh no. No! No! Not again! So this mystery man is in trouble, and they think it's Olimar. So they rescue him, only to find out he's been knocked unconscious by this mechanism in his spacesuit. They wait for him to wake up, and wake up he does, stealing all their food and running away. Pursuing Olimar leads them to the wreck of the Hakatate ship, which is sitting lifeless in the tall grass. Thank God! Once again apprehending this man leads the 3 to the conclusion that this man is not Olimar, but a crew member, Louie, who tells them where the real Olimar is. One last time, they gather their metal and fly to the location of the real Olimar, who is unconscious and being oogled by a mysterious golden creature. They carry Olimar back through a series of caves, all while being pursued by this golden invincible blob, until they make it back outside by the Drake. Olimar is then absorbed by the creature, who grows in size and begins attacking. After a long and arduous battle, Olimar is rescued and apologizes for Louie's behavior. Captain Charlie offers him a ride home after he gives them back the cosmic drive key, and everyone goes home happy. The end. Whew, that was a lot to get through. But yeah, as I'm sure you picked up, Olimar has to come back to the planet for some reason, Louie is still an asshole, and the main plot of the game is to not only collect enough food to bring home to your dying planet, but to also get the crucial component of your ship back. Heavy stuff. and a combination of both Pikmin games' previous plots. But I'm done boring you with story. Let's get to what you really want to hear about. Pikmin 3, gameplay-wise, is the best the series has ever been. There are multiple ways to play, but the best way and the most fun way is with the Wii Remote Plus and Nunchuck. This game was actually designed with pinpoint accuracy in mind, and pointer controls feel so responsive and natural, rather than something they just tacked on as a novelty in the previous game's ports. The controls and rules are basically the same though. Throw Pikmin, swarm Pikmin, have them carry stuff, 100 Pikmin on the field at any given time, multiple types of Pikmin, 13-minute days, you get the idea. Though, Pikmin 3 improves little things in such big ways that it almost makes the other games feel inferior to play as a comparison. I'll proceed to list off as many as I can. First off, Pikmin AI is the best it's ever been. They no longer trip and fall, they avoid hazards and obstacles by themselves, even when carrying back stuff,
For the most part.
and this is due to a staple mechanic getting removed. Remember C-stick swarming? Yeah, that's gone. I guess the developers realized how shitty controlling a swarm with the D-pad on a Wiimote was, and said fuck it, scrapped it, and made a way better mechanic, the Nunchuck Swarm. By locking onto an enemy, not unlike Zelda,
Also a new mechanic.
you can shake the Nunchuck to have all your Pikmin dogpile the enemy. This is way more efficient and wieldy than a dysfunctional crowd, and it helps taking down monsters as simple as ever. The whistle seems much more responsive and accurate as well. When splitting your Pikmin into groups in the previous game, it always felt like you could never get them far enough away from each other to successfully call one group of Pikmin to your side. You always had one or two stragglers from another color's group joining up, and it was annoying. Now when you split up groups, they spread out wide, making it easier to get what Pikmin you need. Even if they don't split up far, something about the whistle makes it easier to grab the right colors. I don't know, it might just be my imagination, but who cares? The camera is now fixed at one angle. In the previous two games, you had 3 zoom-in options. Way too fucking close, the way the game should be played, and way too fucking far. You could also switch to a top-down perspective with the same 3 levels of zoom, and a strange, on-the-ground type of camera in Pikmin 2 that had no purpose. In Pikmin 3, you cannot control the camera's zoom, but it is always in a position that you can see everything you need to, and it somehow just works. I don't know if the world was designed with the fixed camera angle in mind, but it sure as hell feels like it. Never once does it feel like you can't get a good angle on what you're trying to do. It's so good. Also, throwing the right Pikmin has been made so much more intuitive. In Pikmin 1, you couldn't select what Pikmin you wanted to throw if you had multiple colors in your squad, meaning you had to separate them, whistle what color you wanted, and only then could you use them how you wanted. Pikmin 2 sort of fixed this with an option to switch Pikmin types with a tap of the D-pad, and you could even hit up or down to sort between flowers, buds, and leaves. But this was more of a novelty than anything, because the way throwing works in the first 2 games is whichever Pikmin is in closest proximity to Olimar is what Pikmin will be thrown next. You can switch the colors, sure, but if you don't switch every time you throw, there's a chance you could throw a Pikmin of a different color that winded up in the front of your battalion by mistake. In Pikmin 3 though, it doesn't matter how far away the Pikmin is from your captain. You select what color you want to throw with the C button, throw it until you either switch again or you run out. It's so helpful. Even if it does look a bit strange to have Pikmin from the very back teleport into your hands magically. Then again though, this is a strange alien world with giant ladybugs and sentient plant creatures. Do you really give a crap about realism? The onions have been updated as well, giving them a sleek, modern aesthetic. I kinda miss the old cartoony design just for how silly they looked, but I certainly don't miss going to each individual onion to swap out Pikmin. Why won't I miss it? Check it out. After discovering a new type of Pikmin, the onion of that color will fuse with the other onion you have at your base, meaning you can choose all of your Pikmin colors at one time, making management of Pikmin colors an issue of the past. Plus, it looks like you're on drugs if you stare at it, and that's cool. In Pikmin 1, you had to wait 8 years for a Pikmin sprout to hit the ground, plant itself, come up from the ground a bit, and then completely sprout from the ground. A 5-second process. In Pikmin 2, the animation is truncated a bit by having the sprout just immediately come up. In Pikmin 3, fuck all that slow as sloth shit. Before they even hit the ground, you can pluck them. All joking aside, in scenarios where you needed new Pikmin right away, it was frustrating to have to wait so long to get them out of the ground, so I'm glad it's been entirely eliminated from the game. Remember at the end of the day in previous games, you had a countdown and had to rally up all your Pikmin by the end of the day, and any that weren't at home base would be left behind? but it was always very vague what constituted as in or out of home base. Well, now you have this nifty little field of light that tells you exactly where the boundaries lie, and a sick nasty counter that tells you how many Pikmin are in danger of being left behind. Nectar? That shit that couldn't decide how it wanted to act in the previous games? That stuff you'd find one blob of after plucking all that grass, and then that stupid idiot Claude over there drinks all of it in one gulp? Yeah, they fixed that too. Now Pikmin take small sips of nectar, meaning multiple Pikmin can get in on that sweet ambrosia action even if they're late to the party. Only downside is that now nectar has limited uses, meaning only so many Pikmin can become flowers. But that's not really a problem thanks to something else they introduced, which I'll touch up on. Ultra Spicy Sprays are back, and unlike in the previous game, where they were just textureless spheres, they look like actual berries now. It used to be you had to swarm the plant, get the berries, and wait for more berries to grow and continue your harvest. But now, since Pikmin AI has improved, they will simply run berries to and from the ship and the plant, and patiently wait for more berries to grow. This makes getting sprays way less of a hassle, and means you can devote more time to problem solving. Another notable change is that Ultra Spicy Spray can now flower all of your Pikmin instantly, basically rendering nectar obsolete. Aw. And just when they fixed it too. Bomb Rocks are also back, and this time around, any Pikmin can carry them. I don't know why this wasn't the case in Pikmin 1, probably because the yellow Pikmin didn't have enough uniqueness to set them apart from the other Pikmin types, but it's nice to be able to say, oh, cool, Bomb Rocks. Yoink! Instead of, oh, Bomb Rocks. I guess I need yellow Pikmin. Oh, poo. Real quick, I forgot to mention in Pikmin 1, there was this really epic punch maneuver that allowed you to deal damage to things when you had no Pikmin by your side. It was underwhelming. It's not, and should not, ever be used as a replacement for Pikmin, especially since most of the time you have Pikmin by your side anyway, so just use them. In 2, you also had a punch, but with 2 captains, you were able to do way more damage. And with a special upgrade you get later on in the game, you get the Mega Rocket Turbo Punch, which actually makes it a very viable damage option. In 3, yeah, punching's back, but you wouldn't know it at first. You can only execute a punch if you're next to something that can take damage, and you do even less damage than in Pikmin 1. Seems like a waste of a returning mechanic, but I figured I'd mention it anyway. There are so many little changes that make this game the most smooth to control, the easiest to pick up and play, and the most satisfying to master. But enough about the little things. This is boring nerd shit. Let's get on to the new stuff, baby. 3 captains means 3 times the fun. You can actually throw them now, just like Pikmin, which leads to some very interesting puzzles. This also means you can split the workload into 3, allowing you much more freedom in what you want to get done, and how quickly you can get it done. But how do you do that? You can only control 1 captain at a time. This is where the Nintendo Wii U gamepad comes in. During gameplay, you can send captains over to waypoints you set on your map. Of course, you have to have been there before to uncover the map, but this means you can potentially have 3 squads moving independently of each other at any given time. I cannot stress how much fun this is and how greatly this was implemented. This is the first time since Pikmin 1 where Pikmin actually feels like a real-time strategy game. When is he gonna talk about the new Pikmin? Right now, impatient Ian. Sadly, purple and white Pikmin were shelved for this game. Just kidding, but they're only in challenge mode. In their stead, however, are 2 brand new Pikmin types that add a lot more to the game than purples and whites did. We have gray Oh, sorry, rock. Wait, rock Pikmin? They're rocks, not plants. What the fuck is going on here? They're sturdy, do great contact damage, can shatter glass, and are immune to being crushed by enemies or hazards. Only downside is they can't cling on to enemies like other Pikmin can. And pink Pikmin... Wait, winged Pikmin? Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. But are those things supposed to be goggles? Or are they grossly disproportionate eyes?
Oh my god, what's wrong with your face?
Winged Pikmin take the lowest damage output award away from the blue Pikmin, doing piss poor damage. But they have the ability to fly, carry stuff over obstacles, and easily home in on enemies' weak spots. Nice. Third verse, same as the first. We have red, yellow, and blue Pikmin. Reds are exactly the same. 0 changes from 2 to 3. Yellows now have a different yell when thrown. and are not only immune to electricity, which has been dialed down from an instant death hazard to a harmless stun for other Pikmin, but can now dig things out of the ground faster than any type of Pikmin, which is very important since there's lots of shit buried in the ground in this game. Blues are also basically the same, except that in deeper water, they can actually swim towards enemies. Not a huge deal, but it makes underwater combat a bit smoother and faster. Unfortunately, Bulbmin were cut from the game completely. But due to the nature of the game, what with the removal of caves to return to the solely above ground gameplay of Pikmin 1, they weren't really needed. Well, you saw it for yourself. The ship fucking exploded at the beginning of the game, meaning your rations were destroyed. You need food to survive. And as luck would have it, the planet of the Pikmin is chock full of delicious fruits and berries to not only take home, but squeeze dry for scrumptious juice. Look at them. You got strawberries, lemons, cherries, whatever the fuck a mangosteen and ume is. Loquats, oranges, red grapes, green grapes, mangoes, tangelos, watermelons, figs, plums, persimmons, kiwis, apples, papayas, dragon fruits, limes, star fruits, cantaloupes, grapefruits, peaches, bananas, raspberries, Asian pears, normal pears, and avocados? Are they fruit? Okay. They are. Weird. This is the main mechanic of Pikmin 3. In the first game, you had a fixed time limit. In the second game, you could take as long as you wanted. In this game, they took both ideas and meshed them together, and it became something magical. You control the time limit. Collecting fruit is not only a means of saving Kopai or completing the game 100%, but a means to accumulate rations so you can survive. 1 jar of juice equals 1 more day you can stay on the planet. This means that by collecting fruit, you effectively control the pace of your exploration. This is a perfect balance of the previous game's mechanics, meaning an experienced player can rush to collect as much fruit as they need to rest comfortably as they just mess around and explore, while a newbie has sufficient motivation to continue scavenging every nook and cranny for more sustenance, while not being discouraged by a looming deadline. It's beautiful, and it's one of the many places where Pikmin 3 excels. Remember when I said Pikmin 1 and 2 had puzzles, but rarely ever expanded on them? Yeah, Pikmin 3 saw that shit and said, shame on you. This game cranks the puzzle element to 11, and it's great. There's so many more things to see, do, and experience, and even the bosses and mini-bosses require more thought than just throw Pikmin on it till it dies. There's walls, bridges that are segmented into fragments that need to be reconstructed, elemental gates, crystal barriers, mounds of dirt with things inside, severed electrical wires, scales, bombable walls, geysers, mushrooms, hay bales, slides. Holy shit. So many things to build, destroy, and get around. It's nuts. And on top of that, new and exciting enemies that make you put way more thought into planning and puzzle solving. The increase of things to do and puzzles to solve feels supernatural thanks to the new mechanics. You can get more stuff done than ever before. And if you mess up, don't stress, the game has a built-in rewind feature, allowing you to restart days or revert back to previous days, allowing for even more depth in the way you divide your time. What could possibly go wrong? This game is perfect, right? I mean, just look at the visuals. Say what you want about the Wii U, but this game is drop-dead gorgeous. Each area is brand spanking new, and while they share themes with the previous game's areas, they separate themselves with brand new HD visuals and lovingly charming music, as is par for the course for a Pikmin game. But seriously, the graphics are so good. The dynamic lighting is incredible, reacting to even the smallest light sources, even your cursor. The fire effects in this game are some of the most realistic I've seen in a game to date, no contest. New to the series is the introduction of weather, more specifically, rain. It does nothing gameplay-wise, but everything is coated with a glistening sheen of water, even the enemies. And the music. I often find myself restarting days just to get the rain to activate since I like it so much. A game like this couldn't possibly have flaws, could it? It's time to come clean. As far as I'm concerned, this is where the good stuff ends and the shortcomings of this game begin. For starters, this game is really short. Like, really short. Like, Nickelback at a Portuguese venue short.
Up to you. You guys want to hear some rock and roll or you want to go home? See ya.
Even if you're not a seasoned Pikmin veteran like I am, you can breeze through the story mode in like 5 hours. Sure, Pikmin 1 was a short game, but that was the first in the series, and it was on GameCube. There's a television in my controller now. I expect a little more meat out of a game that took 9 years to develop. Yeah, sure, there are extra challenge modes and 2-player modes thrown in, but if you're a weird loser like me, you're gonna have a hell of a hard time trying to find someone willing to participate. This is also the most linear Pikmin game to date. Most linear mainline Pikmin game to date, which is such a sadness.
Such a sadness.
I never in a million years thought there would be waypoints in a Pikmin game, but here we are. This game has objectives, as the other games did, but the other games were more abstract about it. It was either, get off the planet before you die, or get bitches fuck money. It was a setup for your long-term goals. In this game, you're railroaded by scripted sequences and objective markers that not so subtly guide you through most of the exploration in the game. It's not so much about the player's exploration opening up the rest of the game to you. It's about your ability to go where the game tells you to go when the game tells you to go there. Yes, you can take your time and go look for as much fruit as you want before actually completing these goals, but what's the point? In Pikmin 1, your goal was to get all of your ship parts back. That was what you had to do to finish the game. You had some leeway with 5 ship parts being completely optional, but that was still 25 parts overall needed. In Pikmin 2, you thought the game was over once you collected enough treasure to reach the debt, but after Louie goes MIA, your new goal is to retrieve all the treasure, which adds up to a whopping 201 in total. Pikmin 3? Oh boy. Pikmin 3 is unique in the regard that you have 2 goals in this game. Collect fruit to harvest for seeds for your dying world, on top of keeping A, B, and C alive, and getting the Drake's cosmic drive key back so you can fly home. Okay, so what? More is better, right? Well, no. Not at all. In fact, I'd say it's detrimental to the overall experience. Here's the thing. The game doesn't keep track of how many seeds you've harvested to bring back to Kopai. There isn't a certain amount you have to reach, a deadline before the seeds go rotten. Nothing. The fruits are only there as a means of prolonging your stay on the planet. The game ends when you save Olimar. Pikmin, at its very core, is a collectathon. You must collect things to beat the game. That's how it was before, so why does the third game just do away with this? The game advertised fruit collection as the new gimmick. The game pushes it down your throat constantly, and in the end, it doesn't even matter. You get nothing for collecting all the fruits. Nothing. A more uplifting line of text in the ending. That's it. For fuck's sake, even Pikmin 2 let you learn bug recipes from Louie once you collected everything. But no, you can collect as little as 2 fruits. 2 out of the 66 in this game. You can grab as little as 2. And that's enough juice to get you going through the entire game. But I get it, not everyone's a speedrunner. Most players will need more than 2 fruits. But considering a lot of them are in hazardous areas with boss monsters or annoying puzzles, why even bother going for it when you get nothing in return? The fruit gimmick could have been dropped entirely. That's how little it matters to the story and gameplay. Just say 3 explorers crashed on this planet while on patrol and lost their key. Go get it back. Simple. Sure, some would argue that that would make the game much more boring, but it goes the other way too. All Nintendo would have had to do was make it so you can't leave until a certain seed total is met. Wow, that sounds wrong. Have fruits give you a certain number of seeds, and when you pass a threshold, the game ends. This would detract from the epicness of rescuing Olimar, but I believe if Pikmin 3 made this slight change and had a post-game where you could do all the cleanup you wanted, it would have been much better as a result. We then reached the, but you get nothing for 100%ing the game argument I brought up earlier. But that could have been circumvented by adding in an extras menu with concept art, or maybe a bestiary, anything. A Mario Sunshine-styled postcard is something I'd gladly take over literally nothing. My point of this tangent is, if you're going to include a mechanic in your game, give it a fucking purpose. And a purpose that won't let you get away with using a minimal amount of it. This game feels like a Nintendo game. Whoa! Stop the presses! A Nintendo game feels like a Nintendo game? Get this guy a golden play button already! Let me finish. The other entries in this series felt like Pikmin games. This game feels like a Nintendo game. And what I mean by that is, everything just feels homogenized. Nintendo tapped into a very strange and unique place during the GameCube era. Not every single idea they had was stellar, but it goes to show that getting super creative and doing something new doesn't always lead to disaster. Pikmin 3 rolls around and they said, you know what this game needs? More Nintendo! And they dipped it in a vat filled with Shigeru Miyamoto juice, and it did not work out. You know what the big selling point is for a lot of Nintendo games? Bosses! What did Nintendo do to Pikmin 3? Ruin it with bosses! Pikmin 3's bosses are incredible. Super fun, gimmicky in the best way possible, making you strategically pick what Pikmin is best to take it down,
as opposed to just bombarding it with fat.
and the music is intense and really gets your blood pumping. But that's not the problem. The problem is that you know where they are, and you know what to expect. See, I think Pikmin 1 and 2 nailed boss battles. There was always suspense in the air whenever you entered a giant arena in Pikmin 1 or made it to the final floor of a cave in Pikmin 2. Most bosses either appeared out of nowhere or loomed menacingly in the distance, leaving you with a sense of excitement and anticipation for the upcoming battle. You truly never knew what to expect. Is it going to be a giant spider? An enemy we've never seen before? Another giant spider? It was a complete mystery most of the time. And isn't that what being stranded on an alien planet is all about? The intrigue and mystery of it all? You have objective markers in Pikmin 3, and they always lead to an area's boss. Always. No exceptions. The characters make Star Wars-like remarks whenever one pops up. There are these cutscenes and lines of dialogue letting you know danger is up ahead that break your immersion in this alien world. And when you finally do face a boss, you're treated to a cutscene that shows you exactly what the boss is and sometimes exactly how it functions as a boss. Yeah, the battles are fun, but there's no more mystery. It's just there and all up in your face, and you know exactly where to expect them. You could argue Pikmin 2 had the same problem by saying, if there's a boss on the final floor of every cave, you know exactly what to expect. Which is not totally wrong, but is unfair to Pikmin 2. The first time playing, you're not gonna know when the final floor will hit. And even if you do know that a boss awaits you at the bottom of the cave, you don't know what it is until you get there. Sure, you also don't know what it's gonna be when you enter a boss arena in Pikmin 3, but what's worse thematically, in the context of Pikmin specifically? Wandering into a giant room with nothing in it and wondering what's gonna happen next, only to have a colossal spider fall onto your head and completely blindside you? Or wandering into a giant room via a cutscene where you watch said giant spider crawl from the wall, land in front of you, do a little jig, roar, and then you regain control and fight. The latter, obviously. And if you disagree with me, you're stupid and wrong. I'm kidding. But seriously, isn't that just so Nintendo? Having a boss monster roar in your face during a cutscene before you fight? Bro, I just want to throw plants. It kills the illusion of a mysterious environment when you know exactly what to expect, when to expect it, and when you get there, it showboats at you as if to say, third verse same as the first. I know a lot of people are gonna watch this and say I have terrible taste because a lot of games do that whole shtick, and that must mean I think all those games are bad for doing it. No. I'm fine with Mario bosses and Zelda bosses screaming at me before I stomp them into the curb. I'm mad at Pikmin for doing it because Pikmin was never about showing off these grand spectacles. It was about exploring the unknown. The bosses don't even give you anything cool for beating them. Just more useless fruit and an electronic doodad that gives you access to the next area of the game. At least in the first two games, you either got ship parts or upgrades for beating the boss. Upgrades have been cut down in Pikmin 3 and are completely optional. Pikmin 2's upgrades were technically optional in the respect that you didn't need to pick them up as soon as you beat them out of whatever enemy was digesting it, but you still had to get them to beat the game completely. Not only are they optional, but 3 out of the 4 of them are hidden in places you'd never check unless you're a spaz tossing Pikmin everywhere, or you picked up a memo file somewhere nearby and got curious. 3 of these upgrades are lifted straight from Pikmin 2, and they are the lamest ones. Damage reduction, fire immunity, and electricity immunity. Where's the pluckaphone? The Mega Rocket Turbo Punch. The one that lets you take a nap. Instead, we get a dodge maneuver, which, aside from some really neat sequence breaks, is totally worthless, since if your squad of Pikmin is big enough, some of them lag behind your captain and are at risk of getting hit by whatever you were dodging. And the memo files. Don't even get me started on the memo files. These were files left behind by Olimar for some reason. He had no reason to assume someone else would ever come to this planet but him, so I don't know why he left them everywhere instead of keeping them. But whatever. They're there because Nintendo wanted people new to the Pikmin franchise to be able to get the gist of how everything functioned. One problem. They're completely redundant, and most of them honestly insult your intelligence. Most of them are just, Pikmin can do this thing you've seen them do about 100 times before you picked up this file. Pellets give you more Pikmin? Yeah, thanks. Not like I had a whole tutorial to teach me that. Rock Pikmin can smash crystals? You mean like the one I had to smash with Rock Pikmin in order to get this memo file? Blue Pikmin can survive underwater? Yeah, I noticed, thanks. Yellow Pikmin are immune to electricity? Those yellow Pikmin right there, creating an electrical circuit? My mistake, I thought you meant the other yellow Pikmin. Like, what's the point? Okay, some of them aren't as simple as that, but so much information that you learn just from playing the game is shamelessly regurgitated back at you via these memo files. It's insulting. There are some files that are logs from Captain Olimar, either journal entries or clues on how to get past puzzles, which I'm actually okay with. Why weren't all the memo files like this? Remember Leaf and Bud Pikmin? Yeah, they're still around, but if a Pikmin hits flower level, they can't lose it, making the whole point of having a mechanic of Pikmin maturing pretty much pointless. And when you have a full squad of flowered Pikmin, they all just kind of huddle around your captain and twitch awkwardly as you run. It looks choppy compared to how they run when they're all leaves and buds, but you have no choice really. Remember the enemy and treasure logs from Pikmin 2? They're gone. Instead, we get a half-assed botanist journal where Brittany goes into minuscule detail about the fruit you collect. What's worse is that you can only access it via the gamepad, which ruins the entire point of such a feature if I'm being completely honest. Like, I can select this menu while I'm playing the game normally? Why? Was someone really begging Nintendo to let them interrupt the normal flow of gameplay to oogle polygonal fruits? Give me a break. The bestiary has been murdered in cold blood in favor of Check-In, a feature that lets you hear banter between Alf, Brittany, and Charlie before you start a new in-game day. It's neat, but it's missing the same heart and soul that Pikmin 2 had. Sure, some of it is entertaining, but you run out of unique conversations quite quickly, and it becomes very obvious what kind of character archetypes each one of these fools are, and it wears thin by the third conversation. Alf is the naive one, whose heart is in the right place, but is kinda actually really dumb. Charlie is the overconfident jock who thinks he knows what's best, but is always interrupted, and Brittany is just a bitch. She shits on Alf, actually might want Charlie dead, and makes remarks about hogging all the fruit to herself. They don't have anything else interesting to say besides that. Though I will admit, the fact that Charlie is renowned back on Kopai for his multiple rubber duck rescue missions is quite funny. And seeing Louie floating around in Zero G's hogtied like the swine bastard he is, just makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. All in all though, it feels like there's something sorely missing in the soul department of Pikmin 3. The Pikmin still sing a different song if you have 20 of each, but you can no longer hear their sighs and grunts as they trudge along by your side. There's supplementary dialogue, but most of it is, "We have to do this thing tomorrow," or "Pikmin will certainly make dying a lot harder." I don't know, dude. But hey, if a campaign as short and linear as my pecker isn't your cup of tea, there's challenge modes and a new 2-player battle mode to make you realize your friends will never play this with you. Challenge mode has been made much more fun and exciting in this game. There are 3 sub-modes: collect treasure, defeat enemies, and defeat bosses. In collect the treasure, you're given a set amount of Pikmin within a small level designed specifically for challenge mode, and you have a time limit to collect everything on the map. The better you do, the shinier the medal at the end will be. The rules are basically the same for defeat enemies and bosses, but defeat enemies has you grow Pikmin gradually as you progress, as opposed to giving you a set amount in a level. But other than that, it's the same. These levels are so much fun, and you will always want to keep going back to improve on your time. As mentioned way earlier, purple and white Pikmin are back for these modes, but purple Pikmin have been nerfed to infinity, no longer stunning enemies when they land, and not even being able to latch onto enemies when thrown at them. The thing is though, I understand the change. Keeping the broken nature of purples from 2 would have made these challenges way too easy, so I respect Nintendo's decision. White Pikmin are basically the same, except there's no underground treasure to find that any other Pikmin can't already dig up, and poison isn't a hazard in this game, so they're there to run really fucking fast.
I don't think you have any idea how fast I really am. I'm fast as fuck, boy.
But yeah, lots of fun and replayability here. But with only 6 stages each, it's pretty hard to find variety unless you purchase the DLC. Kind of a shameless cash grab with these levels. They could have totally put these in with the game at launch. But hey, they're still fun. Too bad Louie is playable in 2 of these. Overall, a much better alternative to Pikmin 2's and even Pikmin 1's challenge mode. 2-player battle, now called Bingo Battle, is also an upgrade to Pikmin 2's battle mode, where the objective of the game is to collect fruit and enemy courses to fill a line on your bingo board. There's way more stages, way more ways to fuck over your opponent, and thanks to those sweet new controls, it plays like a dream. Good luck finding someone to play it with you though. You can't play with CPU players, only another person. And let me tell you, unless your best friend is Arlo, you're not getting someone else to play this with you. I know that's kind of rude of me to say, but it's true. Pikmin is such a niche title that most people I know don't know how to play, if they even know what Pikmin is to begin with. So forcing someone to play against an aficionado of Pikmin is just going to lead to domination and frustration. I really wish there was a CPU option, or maybe even a set of challenges you had to complete racing against the CPU opponent, but alas, there's no such thing. A much better battle mode that is horribly underplayed and underrated. Pikmin 3 is a good game, don't get me wrong. But it seemed like Nintendo was worried people wouldn't be into Pikmin if they didn't give it that modern Nintendo flair, not realizing that the lack of modern Nintendo flair is what made Pikmin special in the first place. In graphics, story, gameplay, and side content, they excelled. In everything else, they fell flat on their ass. Plus Louie's in this game. Fuck Louie.
見もしないって言ったくせに。
自分を知れ。そんな美味しい話があると思うのか。お前のような人間に。なんてひどい野郎。
Pikmin 3. Pikmin 3.
When
Louie
gets damaged, you'll see a crack in his helmet. But don't worry, it'll get fixed up right away.
Now that that's out of the way, I can finally get to my verdict. The best Pikmin game is... Hey. Oh, who turned out the lights? What the hell am I even paying you guys for? What the hell? What is the... What is that? Oh my god? Oh my god! It's another port! Yay! Add this one to the pile. It's like our desperate prayers for more Pikmin content was answered by God Miyamoto himself. And here we are. 7 years after Pikmin 3's official release, we got a port for Switch with an all-new funky mode. All joking aside, I was floored when I saw this. True, it's still a port, but considering how poorly the Wii U did, it's nice that Nintendo gave those who didn't have a chance to play this game another go on their third best-selling console. It is kinda shitty that they got rid of the... Oh, they put it back up? Okay, never mind. Anyway, I'll go a little bit more in depth in this version of Pikmin 3. More so than I did with Pikmin 1 and 2's Wii ports, because there's actually new stuff in here besides revamped controls. For the sake of brevity and convenience, I'm gonna list the new /changed /removed content on this nifty little chart here. The categories should be pretty self-explanatory, so enough deliberation. Let's get to the good stuff. Also, quick disclaimer, I know there are different difficulty modes for the story, but I'm gonna be talking about story mode on the default difficulty. It's the default way the game was meant to be played, so I'm gonna play it and judge it that way. Frick the heck off! First off, we have 3 save files per Switch profile, which is nice, I guess, but this was never really a big deal, since making another Wii U profile was pretty easy and you could always go back and retry any day you wanted. They probably added this feature so it'd be easier to try all the different difficulty modes. Now, when you start a default game, you have this Mario Odyssey style assist mode thing with arrows telling you exactly where to go. Holy shit, dude. Nintendo must think everyone is a brain-dead Neanderthal if this is what they meant by rebalancing. Like, I get that this game isn't made for adults. I get it. But dude, this game was linear enough without the waypoints. It really didn't need big neon arrows telling you where to go at all times. Having this assist mode be on by default rather than something you can turn off is also not helping this game's case. Bad. Without a Wiimote or a dead Tendo Wii U gamepad, your controller options are relegated to Joy-Cons and the Pro Controller. The controls feel really good, and the gyro aiming is quite responsive, even if you have to recalibrate with the R button constantly. Honestly, you barely even notice. And if you're playing with a Pro Controller, you can use the other stick to move your cursor. Finally! Why wasn't this in the Wii U game? Good. The whistle has been made way bigger than it was in the original. I really don't know how to feel about this. I mean, you could whistle anywhere on screen that you could see, so I don't really get the decision to make it bigger than the entire Eurasian continent. Plus, this makes dismissing Pikmin and calling one color to your side much harder. Gonna get an from me. Oh, I guess we Xbox now. Yeah, Pikmin now has achievements. Great. Just what I needed. Distracting JPEGs coming up in the middle of my plant game. I hate achievement notifications, and I really shouldn't have to explain why. In fact, here, watch this clip. Bad! Data files have been scattered and rearranged all over the maps. Yeah, they still kind of insult your intelligence, but at least there's an option now when you run into one. You don't have to read it right away, it just goes into your logs. So, I'll say good. Pikmin AI has been improved once again. Now, if they complete a task like picking up pieces of a bridge, they'll run to your side rather than idling like they used to. Good. Dismissing Pikmin has changed. Before, you had to shake the nunchuck and it just happened automatically. Now, you hit the X button to bring up this D-pad shaped radial menu thing. And flicking a direction on the control stick now dismisses them. Now, it sounds cumbersome, but on top of this, you can also pick whichever captain you want from this menu, rather than cycling through the captains until you gain control of who you wanted. Good. Why is there a tutorial for destroying this wall? Boo, baby game, boo, bad. Nunchuck swarming and locking on has been revamped as well. Now when you lock on, instead of zooming the camera in and displaying the name of the enemy, you just get a lock on, which feels a lot less claustrophobic than it used to be. On top of that, when you swarm, you no longer send every Pikmin by your side. No, you send whatever Pikmin type you have selected instead, which means you have to swarm multiple times if you want to get every Pikmin going towards your target. This is awesome, making it so you don't have to dismiss Pikmin every time you need specific groups. Plus you can do this. 10 out of 10. Miyamoto?
Yeah, Elm?
Where's the day counter?
It goes right there. I was gonna put it in the game and put day one patch.
It was supposed to be in the game at launch.
Dude, I'm gonna put it in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So go put the day counter in.
Alright, I'm gonna.
It's completely cosmetic, sure, but every Pikmin game, besides that one, fuck you, has had this day counter. It's like a family member has died, and that family member was your favorite pug calendar. Bad. Since you're not straddling a gamepad in your lap like a psychopath anymore, you have a neat little radar that shows your surroundings and waypoints. You also pause the game to access the Go Here function, which doesn't have the same charm as it did on the gamepad, admittedly. When you used Go Here on the Wii U, the gamepad had a cartoony map, and the screen showed real-time footage of the game world. You could even have time pass as normal and just watch Pikmin carry shit and run around. Now, the game pauses no matter what, meaning the speedrunning community is about to have an aneurysm. Though, I still think it's good. I mean, how else were they supposed to do it? Good. The days are so much longer. Why? Again, this game was not that hard before all of these balance changes. Okay, sure, you can do more cool stuff. Alright. Do you also like playing with turds in a sandbox? Get out of here. Bad. You can now call any idle Pikmin on the map back to base by interacting with the Drake. Yeah, they have to physically walk there, so if they run into an enemy or something, they're fucked. But for the person who has a panic attack whenever one Pikmin is left behind at the end of the day, it's a neat feature. Good. Nectar is placed everywhere, completely disrupting the flow of everything in the early game. See, in Wii U, you got Nectar for the first time when you get to Charlie's crash site in the distant tundra. Now, there's Nectar on day 2, making everything ridiculously easy. Compounded on top of the fact that there's way more time in each day, it just ruins any semblance of difficulty this game once had. Like, check it out. The first boss, the Armored Maudad, was challenging because it charges at you and your Pikmin at this point in the game are slow as shit. Check out how piss easy this boss is in the Deluxe version. Yeah, enemies and bosses also have way less HP than they used to. Sorry, I know Nintendo wants to make their games accessible to everyone, but at this point, I expect them to have the games play themselves. Oh, they already did that. Yeah, gameplay balance be damned. This is bad. Story mode is now 2-player. Yay! Now I cannot have one of my friends play this game with me. For real though, why wasn't this in the Wii U version? Also, for any of you complaining that it's couch co-op only, you do realize having to simulate 100 separate in-game creatures while keeping your McDonald's Wi-Fi ass connection stable is impossible, right? Anyway, good addition. Oh sweet lord, yes, the Piclopedia is back. Unfortunately, it isn't full of soul. Like Pikmin 2. See, it's true that all the game's enemies are here and accounted for, and you get commentary from not only Alf, Brittany, and Charlie, but Olimar and Louie as well. But that's all you get. See, in Pikmin 2, you could watch the enemy interact with carrots you throw at them, zoom in and out, swing the camera all around, and do lots of cool shit like freeze them. And depending on where your cursor is on the world map, changes the background. Oh god, soul overload. Now it's just a 5-second gif of the enemy attacking a Pikmin. That's it. No fun zipping and zooming. No freezing. Nothing. I am so disappointed. But hey, at least you can access it from the world map, as well as the fruit journals that Brittany writes. Outside the story mode, we got every DLC challenge mode map and bingo battle returns too. Nice. On top of challenge mode, we have some new story content in the form of a prologue and epilogue starring Olimar and Louie. The prologue utilizes the secret cutscenes you found in the Wii U version via the secret numbered memo files scattered around the world, and we finally get context as to Olimar and Louie's escapades before the Plasm Wraith goes all Yandere on Olimar. But unfortunately, the prologue is just mission mode. Get all the treasure or kill all the enemies and then you win. That's it. Lame. A cameo from the president isn't gonna make me think otherwise. Though, the epilogue story, while still being mission-based, is a little bit different. Picking up from the end credits scene of a meteor flying down towards the planet's surface. Turns out, the president really needs the Hakatate ship back. So, go and get it. Oh, damn it, he's back. It's a soft reimagining of Pikmin 1, but that's actually less exciting than you think. It's just more mission mode levels like kill enemies or collect treasure. The only levels with ship parts are just races to the end of giant obstacle courses you need to carry the ship parts through. It's fun, I guess, and it's more content, but come on. You tease something like Pikmin 1's campaign and then blue ball us with more missions, and then have only like 5 ship parts? I'll say good, but my heart is screaming eh. Whew. Well, after all is said and done, this version of the game is the definitive version of Pikmin 3. But if I'm going to be fair, I'm gonna judge the game as a whole on the original release. I know, most of my complaints were fixed with this newer version, but that does a disservice to the original, and is unfair to the other 2 games. It's always nice to have things tweaked to be more accessible and much more fun in remasters of games, but that's just it. The reason these remasters exist is to right wrongs from the originals. It would be like if every video game reviewer from now on ranked all 3D Zeldas from worst to greatest, but only included the remasters, like Ocarina of Time 3D or Wind Waker HD. Yeah, they're better in a multitude of ways, but that's not the original game that came out. Remasters should be seen as add-ons, rather than full-on replacements. But that's a whole nother topic entirely. It shouldn't have taken them 7 years to add what should have been included in the game at launch way back on the Wii U, so I'm sorry, but as much as I recommend this newer version of Pikmin 3 over the other, I will discard any opinions I have on it so it doesn't affect my final verdict. Feel free to unsubscribe now. Well, there you have it. That was the complete Pikmin franchise. It felt bad tearing. It felt Oh, alright, I'll talk about it. Hey, Pikmin was a 3DS game released in 2017, and as of this day, the latest game in the Pikmin series. Shigeru Miyamoto stated in a 2016 interview that Pikmin 4 had been in the works since Pikmin 3's release, and a year later, this is what we got. I swear this was made by the same assholes who produced Chibi-Robo Ziplash, because what a surprise! It sucks. Same graphical look, same overall presentation, same bastardization of a niche yet sublime franchise. It's very samey. It's like Miyamoto has a fetish for teasing something great, giving us garbage, and then telling us if we don't eat it up like the good little Nintendo sheep we are, Nintendo will drop the series forever and blame it on a lack of demand. Pikmin Ziplash throws everything about established Pikmin rules and gameplay out the window and asks, hey, have you ever played Lemmings? No real-time strategy here. This series went from 3D puzzle strategy to 2D action, with 40 asterisks next to action. You play as Captain Olimar, who crash lands on the Pikmin planet yet again and can't get home until he collects enough shiny objects to fuel the trek. You do this by going level to level, collecting 2 to 4 treasures per level, using Pikmin to fight underwhelming creatures and solve puzzles a kindergartner with palsy could have done better at creating. You thought Pikmin 3 was linear. Boy, Pikmin 3 didn't have level 3 too. Olimar can walk, use a jetpack to hover for a short time, and throwing Pikmin is done via the touchscreen. The gameplay is mediocre. No more exploration. Instead, you maneuver around these rooms, occasionally finding a door that lets you progress, or leads you to a treasure. All the charm any of the environments or enemies had has been sucked away to make generic foresty backdrops and bugs that look more like toys than anything. But hey, at least the treasure hoard and Piclopedia are back. That's about the only thing this game did right in my opinion. I don't want to talk about this game more than I have to. It's a stain on Pikmin's legacy that we may never see the series live down or move on from. Or will we? Okay, analysis done and over with. Which Pikmin game is the best one? Pikmin 2. Pikmin 1 may have had the more engaging gameplay and story, and Pikmin 3 may look the best and have the best controls the series may ever see, but I gotta give this one to Pikmin 2. For all of its flaws, it's still a beautifully crafted, fun game with lots of replay value that doesn't hold your hand through the whole thing, and despite being more lackadaisical than the other two, has its own challenges and fun scenarios to overcome. Plus, it was definitely given the most care and attention to detail with all those little quirky Easter eggs and side content. The other games are more than worth your time, and please don't take my whining and moaning as a warning sign. Maybe you'll completely disagree with me. Just play them for yourselves, because this series is truly a beautifully flawed flower in bloom. But what about the future? Was Hey Prickman, the Pikmin 4 Miyamoto told us was almost finished? In my honest opinion, an honest-to-God Pikmin 4 is probably not coming. Is what I would have said if Pikmin 3 Deluxe didn't come out of nowhere and bring the series back from mediocrity. Yeah, it's a port, but it goes to show that Nintendo still holds some interest in Pikmin. I think they learned their mistake with Hey Pikmin and realized that we actually want an actual game that plays like the games we played in the past. No brainer, right? If you would have asked me a year ago about Pikmin 4, I would have told you I would have loved nothing more, but that I had come to terms with the fact that Pikmin may have been done for. Ask me now and I'm like, bro, we gonna have Pikmin 5 at this point. Nah, I'm cautiously optimistic. But I really do see a brighter future for Olimar and his little plant friends. I think there will be a Pikmin 4 at some point. And you bet when it drops, I'm gonna slurp it up like the good little Nintendrone I am. No. No. You can't come back. Get away. Go. Go back into that trash can where you belong. Go on. Go. Get out of here.
Pikmin 3. Pikmin 3. Boo! Ha, gotcha, didn't I? You thought I was gonna put up the scary bug again, didn't you? Nah, I'm not that mean. I wouldn't do that 2 videos in a row.